All right, so you can make a new program or keep going where we left off. So you have these, in case I decide to use them later in other tutorials. What I'm going to do now is up here, I'm going to define another class, and I'm just going to call this player. And within this class, I'm going to just make a couple public strings. So one for the player's name, and then another one for their ID. Make it game ID. Now, what I can do here is let's create a constructor that's going to initialize these values. So CTOR is our shortcut for doing that. So there's public player, and what I'm going to do is pass in another string, pname, and another string here called pGameID, and then just set name to the name that's being passed in. Same thing here. My game ID is just going to get set to whatever. And remember, a constructor at the very start of when this class is called, or when we create a new object from that class, it automatically calls this and sets it. So this starts right away. So in our program here, let's go ahead and junk all this. And let's just delete everything out of our for loop. And we're going to create a new player object. But keeping in line with our list, what we're going to do is we're just going to create a list of player objects. So remember we talked about for generic, so I'm going to type list here. And inside of this list, I'm just going to make a list of players. And I'm going to call it player list. And make it equal to a new player plus list of players. Now, when we go to add new players in our list, so let's go ahead and do that. Oops, we want this. There we go. So I do player list.add. What's really cool is if I highlight over this, you can see that I'm missing a couple elements here, right? So one of them is these player items, right? So inside of here, I can do a player name, which is XO, and then a player ID, which I can do as 4500, right? And what I'm forgetting though is I need to make sure that I'm specifying that it is a new player, and then I need to wrap these. So what we have here is a new player, and I should make this an int, not a string. There we go. That's probably a lot better. All right, so an int game ID, and then we need to make this an int as well. There we go. That should clear up any of my errors. So what we did here is we created a list of player objects, right? So this is the generic type. And it's of this class. And so now every time we can just go in here, we can start creating new player objects. So I can actually duplicate this a bunch of times and just, you know, Frank, Tom, this is 2700, this could be 1100. So these are different objects of type player. Now, one way that we can help with performance is by specifying the number of items in our list, and we can do that in here. So we have 3 items here. Say we set this to 5. Well, if I do my console, let's try that again, console dot write line, and inside of here I just do capacity is, and I take my player list, and I say, you know what, I want to see what the player list dot capacity is. And let's make sure we put a semicolon at the end, and we run this. Let's make sure we do not have this length. We've got a comment. There we go. That's a lot better. So we can see what our capacity is, and it should spit out 5 here. So let's go ahead and run that. Actually, we should make sure that we do the right line so that it freezes. Otherwise, it's going to flash. Or read line, rather. All right, let's try that again now. And you can see it's telling us our capacity is 5. If we want to know the number of items that are in our list, let's go ahead and duplicate this line, and I can just change this to list hashtag is, and I can change capacity to count. Let's run that again. And you can see capacity is 5, and we have 3 items in our list. So these are 2 pre-made things that are from our using systems.collections class.